The Galactic Council Chamber, a domed behemoth of shimmering glass and gravasteel, was packed. Delegates from hundreds of alien species, towering figures of power and wisdom, murmured amongst themselves as the chamber hummed with tension. No one gathered at the center dais cared much about the finer points of today's proceedings, until King Zorlan VII of the Zilthari Empire raised a clawed hand. Honored delegates, the king's voice echoed, deep and resonant, across the hall. I bring to you a matter of great importance and delicate diplomacy. A few delegates stirred, intrigued. Zorlan, after all, ruled over one of the largest empires in the galaxy. His presence alone demanded respect. But those who knew him understood that when Zorlan used words like delicate, something troublesome was afoot. Commander Jack Monroe, humanity's reluctant representative, tried to ignore the swirl of alien gazes shifting toward him. Jack was a middle-aged, no-nonsense diplomat-turned-scout captain who had been summoned to this session against his will. Humanity, new to the galactic community, had little clout. He had planned to remain unnoticed until now. Some of you may have heard of my daughter, King Zorlan began, his royal tone edged with irritation. Princess Liara. A murmur of recognition swept through the crowd. Liara was infamous. Galactic news feeds had been feasting for months on rumors of her outbursts and her flagrant disregard for Zilthari customs. The Zilthari prided themselves on restraint and dignity, but Liara had shattered that image like a pane of glass, publicly condemning her father's imperial policies and, most damning of all, refusing to marry as tradition demanded. She is difficult, Zorlan said, as diplomatically as possible. Difficult? She hijacked a royal cruiser and flew it into a Senate meeting on Aurelius IV, hissed an ambassador from the Moncral Consortium. Laughter rippled across the chamber. She declared her father's crown a monument to stupidity, added another delegate, grinning with needle-like teeth. Jack rubbed his temple. Great. A spoiled alien princess story. Why am I here again? King Zorlan's claws clicked ominously on the dais. Her unconventional behavior has embarrassed my empire and destabilized my court. But rather than allow conflict to fester, I have decided to seek a neutral solution. The chamber quieted. King Zorlan raised both arms in theatrical fashion. I hereby relinquish Princess Liara to the care of a neutral outsider, one without ties to Zilthari politics. This shall be my gesture of goodwill to the Galactic Council. The silence turned sharp. Delegates exchanged startled glances. Relinquishing a royal heir to an outsider? Jack shifted uncomfortably as Zorlan's gaze slid toward him. A knot twisted in his gut. One of the delegates, a reptilian miser representative, hissed, and who, pray tell, would be foolish enough to accept such a burden? King Zorlan's face twisted into a sharp-toothed grin. I offer guardianship of my daughter to humanity. The chamber erupted into chaos. Laughter boomed, screeches echoed, and a booming voice exclaimed, "The humans?" Jack blinked, unable to process what he had just heard. Wait, hold on. What did he just... You heard me, Commander Monroe. King Zorlan cut him off, his tone sickeningly polite. I have deemed humanity's impartial standing ideal for this arrangement. You are a neutral outsider, are you not? No, Jack barked, rising to his feet. I'm not qualified for... The delegate from the Garthex cut him off with a wheezing laugh. Qualified? It's a royal disgrace being shoved onto your species, human. This is priceless. Jack turned toward the council speaker, hoping for intervention. This can't be legal. I didn't even volunteer. The speaker, a gelatinous entity that pulsed with flashes of indifference, shrugged, or at least pulsed in a way that suggested indifference. The king is well within his rights to place his daughter under your care. Neutrality has its privileges. The laughter in the chamber rose again, a cruel crescendo of alien amusement. Jack slumped back into his chair. You've got to be kidding me. Commander Monroe, King Zorlan said with mock solemnity, it is my greatest hope that you will find a way to mold my daughter into a more productive member of galactic society. Consider it a gift of goodwill to humanity. You are welcome. The hall dissolved into laughter once more. Alien delegates clapped appendages, slapped tails, and rattled mandibles, as if this was the greatest entertainment in years. Jack glared across the room at King Zorlin, who looked far too pleased with himself. Jack's comms unit buzzed. It was his first officer aboard the Harbinger. "Sir, we've got a guest aboard." Jack's stomach dropped. "What? You might want to come see this, sir. She says her name's Princess Liara." The laughter of the Galactic Council echoed in Jack's ears as he stormed out of the chamber. The last thing he heard was King Zorlin's voice, smug and final. "Do take care of her, Commander. She's your responsibility now." When Jack stepped onto his ship's bridge 10 minutes later, he stopped dead. Princess Liara, tall, lithe, and unmistakably Zilthari, lounged in his captain's chair, her silver skin shimmering beneath a dark cloak, her violet eyes fixed on him with amusement. "Congratulations, Guardian," she drawled. "I hope you're prepared." "I'm not an easy responsibility," Jack groaned. "What the hell did I just get myself into?" Jack Monroe stood at the doorway to his ship's bridge, staring at the unwelcome intruder in his captain's chair. Princess Liara lounged like she owned the place, one leg draped casually over the armrest, her violet eyes gleaming with mischief. "Get out of my chair," Jack said flatly. She smirked, unbothered. "I believe your people have a saying about possession being 9/10 of the law, Captain." Jack clenched his jaw. "Fine. You want to play games? That's great. But let's get one thing straight, this is my ship. You're just a passenger. And since I didn't ask for you, don't expect special treatment." Liara's smirk didn't fade as she rose from the chair with cat-like grace. "A speech. How very human of you." She glanced around the bridge, her sharp features radiating disdain. "And this is your vessel? It's far smaller than I imagined." Jack rolled his eyes. "Yeah, well, we're not exactly swimming in Imperial funding. Welcome aboard the Harbinger. You break it, you fix it." Her expression darkened, but she said nothing. Jack didn't care. He motioned for her to follow him, striding toward the ship's common area. Liara kept pace, her gaze sharp and evaluating, like she was cataloging everything wrong with humanity's technology. Once they reached the galley, a modest compartment of dull gray walls and a barely functional food dispenser, Jack turned to face her. "Here's the deal, Princess. You might be royalty on your homeworld, but here everybody works. You don't eat unless you contribute." Her silver skin flushed faintly violet, a Zilthari sign of anger. "Contribute? You expect me to labor like a commoner?" "That's exactly what I expect," Jack shot back. "I didn't ask for you, but since you're here, you'll follow my rules. This isn't a palace. There's no entourage to pamper you." She crossed her arms, chin lifting defiantly. "I am Liara, daughter of Zorlin 7, and I'm Jack Monroe, a guy who doesn't care. Titles mean nothing here." For a brief moment, Liara looked ready to unleash a storm of indignation, but instead, she exhaled sharply and smiled, an unsettlingly predatory expression. "Very well, Captain. I'll contribute. Let's see if you can keep up with me." Jack frowned at her tone, but before he could respond, a loud clang echoed through the ship. Sparks erupted from the engine bay. Jack's comm crackled to life. "Commander," his engineer's panicked voice filled the room. "Something's wrong with the power core. Systems are failing." Jack turned sharply to Liara, suspicion dawning in his eyes. "What did you do?" She raised an innocent brow. "Nothing. Yet." Jack didn't wait for further answers. "Stay here," he ordered, sprinting toward the engine bay. Minutes later, Jack surveyed the mess. Circuits fried, panels scorched, and the power core stabilizer knocked out of alignment. His engineer, a wiry young man named Ortiz, shook his head. "This doesn't just happen, Commander. Someone tampered with it." Jack felt a headache forming behind his eyes. He turned as footsteps echoed. Liara, calm as ever, had followed him despite his orders. "I told you to stay put," Jack growled. She shrugged. "Your ship, your rules, remember?" Jack advanced on her, his patience snapping. "If you're trying to sabotage us, I'll lock you in the brig myself." "What's your angle?" Her defiance faltered for just a moment, and Jack caught something beneath her veneer, an edge of vulnerability. I didn't sabotage your ship. I may be unwanted, but I'm not stupid enough to crash with you. Jack searched her gaze and, to his surprise, believed her. Something bigger was going on. This isn't a game, Princess. If you're hiding something, I will find out. Liara turned away, her voice quiet. You wouldn't understand. Jack watched her, the tension thick between them. He wasn't sure if she was a prisoner, a rebel, or a ticking time bomb. But one thing was clear. Life aboard the Harbinger had just gotten a whole lot more complicated. The Harbinger lurched hard to port, sending Jack Monroe sprawling across the bridge as alarms blared in his ears. Red lights pulsed overhead, casting the room in an ominous glow. His first officer, Ortiz, shouted from the controls. Commander, we've got Zilthri warships closing in. 3 cruisers and a frigate. They're hailing us. Jack pushed himself to his feet, gripping the edge of the captain's console. Of course they are. Put them on. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a grim-faced Zilthri officer clad in black ceremonial armor. His silver skin glistened under the polished light of his warship's bridge. Human vessel Harbinger, the officer sneered. This is Commander Virak of the Zilthri Imperial Fleet. You are harboring Princess Liara, a fugitive of the Empire. Surrender her immediately or face destruction. Jack scowled. She's not a fugitive. She's your king's problem. And she's under my guardianship, so you can take this nonsense somewhere else. Virak's lip curled into a snarl. You are in no position to negotiate, primitive. Power down your engines or we will open fire. Before Jack could respond, Liara's voice rang out behind him. Virak! She stepped forward, arms crossed, violet eyes blazing. Tell my father that I am not coming back. The Zilthri commander's face twisted in fury. You dishonor your house, Princess. Do not make me drag you from this ship. Liara's expression hardened. Try it. The view screen cut off abruptly as the Zilthri ships accelerated toward them. Jack turned to Liara, his temper boiling over. Great. You just had to poke the hornet's nest, didn't you? She met his glare without flinching. I'm not going back, Captain. I'd rather die than let my father control me. Well, congratulations, Jack snapped, throwing himself into the captain's chair. You might get your wish. Ortiz, full power to engines. Get us out of here. The Harbinger roared as its engines fired to maximum burn, hurling the ship away from the approaching Zilthri fleet. On the view screen, the cruisers spread into attack formation, sleek and deadly, already closing the gap. Commander, they're faster than us, Ortiz called out, sweat dripping from his brow. We won't outrun them in open space. Jack's mind raced. The Zilthri ships were far superior in firepower and speed. Running was pointless. He needed an edge, something to level the playing field. Set a course for the Kestrel Belt, he ordered. Ortiz turned, stunned. The asteroid field? Sir, that's a death trap. It's our only shot, Jack growled. We can dodge rocks better than they can. The Harbinger screamed into the swirling chaos of the Kestrel Belt, a dense maze of tumbling asteroids and debris. Jack gripped the controls, heart pounding, as the Zilthri cruisers followed in pursuit. Liara moved beside him, her voice low. This is madness. Jack shot her a dry grin. Welcome to humanity's specialty. Outside, asteroids tumbled past, smashing into one another with violent force. The Zilthri ships slowed, their formations fracturing as they struggled to navigate the deadly terrain. Jack pushed the Harbinger harder, weaving between massive spinning rocks with instinctive precision. Come on, you arrogant bastards, Jack muttered under his breath. A loud crash reverberated through the ship as a glancing blow rattled the hull. Ortiz shouted, shield integrity at 60%. We can't take many more hits. Jack's fingers danced across the controls. He spun the Harbinger hard, narrowly skimming an asteroid's edge, then cut power for a split second, letting the ship drift behind a massive rock. The pursuing Zilthri frigate had no time to react. Its hull smashed into the asteroid, erupting in a ball of fire. Gotcha, Jack muttered. The remaining cruisers hesitated, slowing their pursuit. Jack used the moment to punch the engines again, darting deeper into the asteroid field. After several tense minutes, the scanners cleared. The Zilthari fleet had pulled back, unwilling to risk further losses. Ortiz slumped with relief. They're gone, Commander. They gave up. Jack leaned back in his chair, exhaling heavily. They'll be back. That was just round one. Liara studied him, her expression unreadable. You surprised them. Jack glanced at her, smirking faintly. Humans tend to do that. For the first time, a small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Maybe you're not entirely useless after all. Jack rolled his eyes. Glad to hear it, Your Highness. Now sit tight, because this ride isn't over yet. Outside, the asteroids drifted in silence, the temporary calm masking the storm to come. The Harbinger drifted in the shadow of a massive asteroid, its engines powered down to hide its signature. In the dim glow of emergency lights, Jack Monroe sat at the galley table with Princess Liara across from him. The silence between them was thick, broken only by the occasional creak of the hull settling. Jack leaned back, arms crossed. We need to talk. Liara regarded him coolly. Talking has never solved anything in my experience. Well, you might want to try, Jack said sharply, because I need answers and I'm out of patience. Why are Zilthari warships after you? And don't tell me it's just because you dishonor your house. She stared at him for a long moment, her defiance flickering. Finally, she exhaled, her voice low. It's more than rebellion. My father isn't just furious because I refused an arranged marriage or embarrassed him at the Senate. I took something dangerous. Jack's eyes narrowed. Define dangerous. Liara hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of an empty cup. The Zilthari Empire's new tactical core, a prototype AI. It was designed to predict and eliminate entire rebellions before they could begin. It's a weapon of control and domination. Jack froze. Let me get this straight. You stole an Imperial AI superweapon? And you brought it here? She gave a faint, unapologetic shrug. It's not active. I didn't intend to hand it to anyone. Not even your people. My goal was to destroy it. But the only place I could run was out of Zilthari space. To you, Jack ran a hand down his face, cursing under his breath. So, I'm babysitting a runaway princess and a ticking time bomb? That's just great. Liara's expression hardened. I had no choice. My father would use that AI to crush dissent and expand his empire further. Millions would suffer. Jack studied her, the flicker of sincerity in her voice pulling him up short. For the first time, he saw past her arrogance and royal airs. There was desperation there, and resolve. So what's your plan now? He asked, his voice calmer. I need help destroying it, Liara said. But I can't do it alone. The data core is locked, and I don't have the resources to wipe it. Your people have the technology, even if it's primitive. Jack snorted. Flattery will get you nowhere. Ortiz's voice crackled over the comm from the bridge. Commander, we've got movement. Looks like a small scout ship. They're scanning the area. Jack shot to his feet. They're hunting us. He turned to Liara. You said this AI isn't active. But they wouldn't chase you across an asteroid belt if they didn't think it was here. Is there any chance it sent out a signal? Liara's face went pale. I don't know. Jack's jaw tightened. Well, we better assume they can track us. He tapped his comm. Ortiz, prep the engines. Get us ready to move. Liara stood, her earlier calm replaced by urgency. Jack, I trusted you with the truth because I need your help. I can't do this alone. He glanced at her, caught between anger and reluctant admiration. And I didn't sign up for this. But if what you're saying is true, we don't just have Zilthari warships to worry about. If that AI falls into the wrong hands, this whole galaxy's in trouble. Liara nodded slowly. Then we have common cause. Common cause, Jack muttered. Sure, let's call it that. The Harbinger's engines roared to life, the hum of power vibrating through the deck. Jack headed toward the bridge, motioning for Liara to follow. One thing's clear, Princess. We're in this mess together now, Outside, the scout ship's sensors swept closer, unaware that its quarry was already moving. The chase was far from over, and Jack knew the stakes had just gotten a lot higher.